Welcome back to the Berg podcast. Thanks for joining us today. With me today is Dan.
Hey, everybody.
And Ford.
Hey, how's it going?
And today we're talking about the honoring of a commitment. And by that, it's a kind of relates
talking about getting married,
or committing to the values you've already committed to. No, I don't know.
Renewing those vows.
Renewing vows? Yeah, no, that's not.
That's not what we're talking about.
Renewing vows isn't where
Sorry,
we were
ladies.
going. Sorry, ladies. Yeah,
We will do it if, we all outkicked our coverage. So
for sure. Yeah, for sure.
just tell me the date. I'll be there.
I feel like we've covered that one on this podcast at some point in time, right? Like
multiples.
Yeah, multiple times.
Except for Ford, because now he looks like Jason Kelsey. So
all right. Well, he's working into it.
He's working into it.
He's trying to level the playing field here a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't think a beard's going to make that difference, but we'll try.
You need that NFL contract.
That podcast contract.
Podcast contract. That'll do all right.
There we go.
I mean, with the Wawa commercial, you get like free Wawa for a while. Probably wouldn't be for the waistline, but it'd be good.
That'd be bad for your diet,
Yeah,
for sure.
it'd be like Hoagie Fest every day.
Oh, that'd be bad. That'd be bad. Brian, what are we supposed to talk about today?
We're talking about honoring commitments. My dad used to always say something to me, and I'm sure it's like a proverb or something that he got somewhere else. And he used to always tell me, like, let your yes be a yes and let your no be a no. And it just it's a conversation that we actually were having here not long ago about when you say you're going to do something and you say it'll be done by a certain time, trying to honor that commitment.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and if time is necessary,
Yeah.
I start at the first step. Like if I say you say, Dan, can you get this done? I say, yes, Brian, I'll get that done. And I leave it at that because at that moment, I don't have a plan for how I'm going to get it done or when I'm going to get it done. I'm just acknowledging you need to get it done. Versus if you put a time frame on it and you say, hey, Dan, I need you to get this done by Friday.
Right.
I say, okay, Brian, I'll get that done by Friday. And then now I've made a commitment to being done what I needed to do for you to accomplish what you need by a certain time. But I feel like with the way society has developed, that it's more instantaneous now, that everybody wants to say like they want to be the first. And we've talked about being the first, right? With like identifying things and liking it, tagging it, whatever it is. But one of those sort of things where they say like, that an unnecessary quick date, and it can be because you feel the urgency of it. But that when you say, I'm going to be done on Tuesday, well, it's Tuesday. You're not done. And I didn't say it. And we had talked about it. This went way back to I think we talked about this a little bit on an old podcast. And if we didn't, definitely internally, that we had worked with a company who would set these dates arbitrarily. And they set the date. And then they would miss the date. And then we would get frustrated because they missed the date. And they were like, when do you need it? And I was like, I didn't need it in the first place. But you said it would be done. And to really understand the impact in our environment, in our world, with dates and liquidated damages. And it's understanding that impact, because especially in heavy civil. Yeah. When I have to deliver, I'm not delivering the building, right? Like when you take, like, make it simple, a commercial site or an industrial site, and they have some liquidated damages if a building doesn't get done and they don't have occupancy. That's got virtually nothing to do with me. Like nothing. I didn't build the building. I didn't do the internals. I didn't set the building up. I didn't put the machinery in. I didn't do the electric. But 9 months before that, 12 months before that, I have to have the pad ready. So the pad date is some arbitrary date of when I have to have it ready so they can have the building, so maybe they can hit the deadline. So when that's where you live every day, is in a world where someone says an arbitrary date that you reach and it means nothing for another 9 or 10 months, you start to really care about when someone says this is going to be done on this day. Like, okay, then that day it is.
I think so two things that came out of that. One, I don't know if like they're arbitrary necessarily. So like, I think that sometimes, I think we acknowledge inside of the scope of what we do, the importance of our piece getting done in a timely fashion because of the reliance on the other pieces to have that come next. Right. So, now whether or not ultimately that impacts the project being done on time or not on time, I think that our crews certainly acknowledge like, hey, our stuff has to be done within a timely fashion because it comes first and it comes last. And if it's not done and so that other things can happen, that's a problem, right? But I was curious if the two of you think that comes from being inside of an industry where those demands are placed on us so heavily. Like, do people outside of this industry have more of a tolerance or wiggle room for those types of statements where they say like, absolutely, I'll get you an answer by Friday, and on Tuesday you don't have an answer?
I think there's a technical piece that really ties into it. You think about someone that does like HVAC, like they have to be done by a certain time. Whereas other industries have a lot more fluidity to their dates and times don't matter to them as much. There's two funny stories. One was just happened to me. Today's Wednesday, like Monday. We stopped at this place for lunch, and it was Mama and the girls and me. And the girl at the front desk said, just a couple minutes will get you in. And she said it in a way that didn't tie her to anything. But Mom's like, oh, okay, a couple minutes, good. And then a couple minutes became, oh, and a couple more minutes. Like the girl kept using that same verbiage because she didn't say 5 minutes. She didn't put a defined time on it. She just said in a couple minutes. Mm-hmm. We're standing there for 15 minutes and getting to that point where you're about to walk off because, you know, we have the kids. We're trying to move this along.
Sure.
And, oh, just a couple more minutes. And you're like, she knew how to drag it on in a way that you would still hope for it to be what you thought it, like you heard what you wanted to hear. And she was telling you what you wanted to hear, but she wasn't actually telling you.
So I don't want to sidetrack us here, but Tamara allowed that to be the answer, or was Tamara not there and you accepted the answer?
No, she was the one that accepted the answer.
Because that's not Tamara's style normally.
But then after that first couple minutes are up, she's like, okay, go. But then you're like, you already waited, and so you already wasted the time here. So to go find a new spot because we were in a tourist area.
You're going to wait a couple minutes everywhere.
Exactly.
So, see, I don't like, for me.
But there was no defined answer to it.
Yeah,
right?
For me, I don't accept, like if someone says to me it'll be a couple minutes, I'll be like, okay, like how many minutes?
Right.
Like, and that's probably the New Jersey, like just
impatience,
intolerance.
Say 15 and we're like, okay, cool.
I mean, you could say an hour and that's fine. Then I'll make a decision based on that. Or you can say 5 minutes. But if you say 5 minutes and it gets to be 10 minutes, I'm going to be frustrated.
Right. Well, the second story was actually interesting, more tied to us. I was talking to a guy who was like a project manager / like superintendent for construction. And the way he looked at it was very cool and unique. He's like, okay, I have a puzzle that I'm putting together in the heavy civil piece, right? So I'm working with the different machines and the schedules and stuff, he said. But then I realized that the project manager for the job, he's in a different puzzle. I'm only a piece of, I have to put my piece together so he can put his puzzle together. But I don't know what the owner's puzzle is. They might have something completely different because I'm only getting to see what is mine. So I think my amount of time for my puzzle piece is put together, but I'm playing in somebody else's puzzle. And if you want to show me that puzzle, maybe I can help you. But if you want to keep that behind closed doors, then all I have to work with is getting my puzzle piece to you so that you can put your larger puzzle together at the next time frame. So I'm kind of tied to whatever I have.
It's going to be 2 weeks at Longwood, apparently, because Longwood actually is crazy that they shared the entire puzzle. Like throughout this whole process, I have pictures of this crazy room with, it had a board for every job, right? For every trade. And then it had a conglomerated board of the buildings and then another board and it just wrapped around. And it was like you were in like a very old, like I don't want to portray this as like some modern thing. It wasn't a big crew usage plan with building the project or anything. It was physically Post-its on a board for 3 years out projecting. And every time the Bruce that was running the job would like move these tabs, he'd be like, oh yeah, so we'll put this here. Then you got to like move 37 other tabs of how that impacts everything and trying to manage this to that idea of, as soon as you said about the puzzle, I thought about that with them, that's what they were doing with this puzzle. But the other thing I thought about was you were talking about the actual dates and the arbitrary dates. So the conversation just happened the other day with Dylan and I, and in passing, Dylan said October 22nd. I was like, October 22nd? Ever since I've heard anything, it's been November 22nd. We had always heard November 22nd. Everything ran to November 22nd, November 22nd. November 22nd is the last day before the Longwood Christmas opens. It is not the date. The contract date is October 22nd. Not on our contract, but on the overriding contract scope. And so he said it, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, October 22nd? And so we went through this whole conversation. He's like, yeah, you're not going to believe it. No one ever told us the real date. They just kept saying November 22nd because they knew in their mind that while, yes, they wanted it October 22nd, they had to have it by November 22nd. So in that sense, the owner was, the GC was a little bit more was both less and more transparent, right? Less because they didn't tell us when we had to be done, but more because don't worry about this date. That's already blown. We got to try and make it to this date. But now they found out that there's some like private members only opening at Longwood that's going to occur based on that October 22nd date. So now we're like trying to lay out plans for what it looks like to get, virtually everything done by then. So it's, it just became an interesting thing that I thought about when you thought, and then I thought of our buddy Heath, because GCs are nothing but a bunch of wedding planners, right? So, and I say it, and it's true. They are out
say
there
it with
trying
a southern
to manage.
accent though to really get that.
I can't do that. We'd have to phone Heath in for that.
Phone a friend.
But the puzzle's a great analogy that you have your puzzle, and our puzzle is always the most gray puzzle. Like we always talk about it. You know how much wire you're going to need. You know how many pipes you're going to need. You do not know what's in the ground.
And we're not a puzzle that has square edges. Right. So we're trying to build our puzzle, but there is puzzle like cutouts on the side to tie into other people. And sometimes we don't know what that is.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's always that constant struggle because of, a well-run puzzle or someone that's managing that puzzle really knows how to tie those pieces together in a clean fashion.
And that's
but sometimes, they're trying to mold those puzzles together as they're being built. And that's when it gets a little hectic for everybody.
In the puzzle, analogy, when you sort of picture it, is the best of the companies, the GCs, the owners reps. They put the puzzle together. They like build the puzzle and then they slide each piece gently and it meshes like a transmission. And when it goes badly, it's more like somebody forgot how to use a clutch and they're just slamming it into gear. And they're like, well, piece A,
we'll make it work.
We're going to make it work. And then stuff breaks and then, it slows you down and there's a mess. And that's a really good analogy that way forward with the puzzle idea that when it works well, they mesh together.
Sure.
And at the end, there's this singular puzzle that everybody thought was one puzzle.
Right.
And I guess really at the end, you don't even see a puzzle anymore. You see a picture,
right.
You see something but we're not away from where we started. That's why the dates are so important. And really the point of this that we were trying to make is that outside of the industry and not heavy civil construction industry, I don't know that dates are as relevant. I don't know that times and commitments, a funny place that I think you get to that it is banking. Right. It's like when you get into like true like banking and finance, because like you have one day to, like trade, you got to have the value that minute. At that minute, what was that stock worth? You know what I mean? How long did you hold that bond to figure out what the interest rates were and how much money you made? You know what I mean? All of those things. So there are other industries where times and dates are really as important. But as a society, when we operate, we get very vague. Even the girls with soccer come to mind that the one team 30 minutes early is deemed on time. And the other one 45 minutes early is deemed on time for games. And both of them is about 15 minutes early for practice, right? And you bring that into our own industry of what we expect from our guys, that they're going to get on site. If we say we're starting at 7, that means we're working at 7, right? Well, you can't be working if you didn't grease the machine. You can't have greased the machine if you weren't there 15 or 20 minutes early. And also, how did you know what you were doing? So that means there's probably a conversation that was had after you greased the machine, before you started working, that all occurred before 7 a.m., which is when it said you had to start. But if you're not in the industry, you don't know that. You think like, well, it's 7 o'clock. I have to like punch in at 7 o'clock and I'm here and I'm now ready to work.
Right. Yeah. Go get my cup of coffee. Yeah. No.
Well, and it's interesting too, if you see some of the more experienced people. I mean, some of those guys are on the job site an hour and a half early.
Yeah.
It's always funny, just because like when I get to go out, like I'm, personally, I set my watch ahead a little bit. Like if I'm supposed to be somewhere at 10:15, I'm there by 10 o'clock. Like that's how I run my stuff. And, I'll get to the job an hour early, especially I'm like just new to the job, trying to scope it out and have them stop got my cup of coffee. I want to sit there and kind of just visualize the site. And you'll just really see the difference between people that have been in the industry for a while and those that haven't sometimes, because the people that have been there, they'll probably beat you to the job. The new people are the ones that are like creating dust on their way in, 20 minutes early.
Or they're from New Jersey.
Yeah, that's too. They're pulling that way. But it's just an interesting thing of how you value time, how you value others' time, and how you try and interact that with the bigger scope of what is going on. That's truly the bottom line to it. But when you get used to doing that, then when other people don't value it in that same manner, it gets very challenging. I have some people I know that we have to falsely tell them a time for something because they never show up on time. So if we're doing something at 5, we're telling them at 4 because you just know they can't make it on time. They just run everything. And I don't quite understand it because it just seems like they're always harried. They're always rushing to everything. It feels like a very chaotic life. And, I have small kids now, so it's more chaotic than ever. But you just look at them, they always feel like they could never experience what's happening because they're always on the next thing. But we talked about this at a different event I was at. They were wondering why young people that have children don't stay at this one place very long. And I said, the reality is they only have a certain amount of time. In the old days, if you're taking historical data from other locations or whatever, people would go to these places and maybe spend the afternoon and then spend dinner there and, make the afternoon of it. But now you have 14 things on your calendar in that day. So if you got a 3-hour window, that feels like 12, right? To do something. But the minute that you're done, you're gone. You're not staying for dinner. You're not staying to socialize. You're literally packing up because
got to get to the next thing.
Got to get to the next thing. And it is really interesting how we've, by overscheduling or overcommitting to things, it has created a very hectic day, week, month for everybody. And so when you're trying to make sure you actually do each thing, it gets a little tricky.
Well, and I just as a personality, I want to do as much as I can possibly do, right? I'm going to stuff as much as I can into the day. And while it creates chaos at some times, at some points, I feel like we're best using our time. But I also feel like I don't overschedule. In a crazy sense, I try not to schedule more than can be achieved. But I try to fill every minute with something meaningful, something that I feel will be of value. So I don't want free time in it. And it becomes a personality thing that I'm sure goes right to my ADHD and everything else that isn't, not diagnosed. But
self-diagnosed.
Yeah, self-diagnosed. It's been diagnosed by lots of people, just not. I just don't want a doctor. They just don't have doctors. They just don't have doctorates. Yeah. But we were sort of talking about that sense that even slowing down bothers me. If someone takes a nap, it's annoying to me. Yeah. You're wasting time. This is, you can sleep later. Or even Erin reads a lot. And she started reading again when she was with the girls. And I didn't want to say it to my kids because then I'm saying reading is a waste of time. But I would look at her and be like, God, I wish you'd put that book down. There's stuff we could do if you would just stop reading, And so I realized that's it's a thing with me where I always want to be busy, but I don't feel hurried in my busyness. I only feel hurried if I look at the schedule and realize it's a little tight. And I was thinking about Herb when you were talking, Sergeant. Herb had said he now uses, adaptive cruise control a lot because he sets it at the speed limit and then he builds his schedule for only what he could do based on that speed limit, right? So he can't possibly be there. If it's 60 miles away and the speed limit's 55, he can't be there in 60 minutes. So he's got to allot time. And he said, I feel a lot better now because it is manageable. I'm not always rushing. So it's funny how you play tricks with yourself, with time and with your mind, trying to beat GPS and everything else. And I thought about it when you said about your watch. Is your watch ahead?
Yes.
See, I don't do that because I would account for the fact that it's ahead and just subtract it out and be pointless anyway. I couldn't forget that it was ahead, so I would know I have extra time because my parents used to do that. They would set it ahead knowing they'd be late. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's crazy. Why not
I just go by this. I don't do the math. I just
go by
this clock.
That is the time, right? So, yeah.
I mean, it's only 5 minutes, but it's just literally the principle of, but we know a place where it doesn't get used.
Let me check my watch.
Yeah. Where it doesn't get used? Medical offices. Their lack of respect for your time is just an abomination.
Yeah. And now you have kids. Yeah. Now you have kids. You take the kids there. And we can.
Well,
this will take
we're not
us
going
off
to say
topic.
we're not going to say a place, but I will say the place that we use is one of the best I've ever dealt with. But I've left dentist practices because they tell you 4:30 and it's 5:15. You still haven't seen somebody, and I've just wasted an hour and a half of my day sitting in their room with no ability to do other things. You know, like I don't really care. Just tell me the actual time. Don't give me a false pretense. So now I literally schedule most of my appointments in the morning because I hope that by then they're not so far behind. Because I used to do like after work, and then my whole evening was shot because I was waiting to get. It's like I understand they're backed up, but then either book less patients or do something. But when you tell me 4:30 is my appointment, not 6 p.m., and it really gets aggravating.
So I have to. I'm not going to say who, but I have to say our dentist, which was Aaron's dentist, is astonishing. Like I will walk in there 2 minutes before I'm supposed to be there because I know it's going to be dead on. It's like clockwork. I don't even have to sit down. Like it's amazing how efficiently that's
unusual
is run. And so I may not appreciate it because I'm just used to it.
Yeah.
But in our experience with the kids before we moved to where we are now, we would joke about it that I would like, they're going to tear your office apart. It's going, because you normally when you go with the kids, and mine are 2 years apart. So if one's sick, they're all sick. So I'm bringing them. They're sick. We're going there. They're already in a bad mood. Then you lock them in the little room with that paper that pulls over the table. I hope you have more of that somewhere because that's the first thing they're getting into. They're going to climb your spinny chair. That might be disconnected. And I'll just, for about 15 minutes, I'll hold it together and I'll like be a parent. And at about 15 minutes, you've now exhausted my desire to help you maintain your office because you locked 3 kids with nothing to do in a small room with a bunch of gadgets. And you're going to make them, you're going to think they're going to sit there. You know, this isn't going to go well. And you're going to sit there. So I view it like you did it to yourself now. Like, and so that can be, that's how New Jersey rolls for it. I'm not going to, it's your problem, not my problem.
That's not Lancaster County.
That's not Lancaster County.
Yeah.
But that is one of the most frustrating things when you're in a doctor's office with kids and they just close the door and they're like, "We'll be right with you." And I'm like,
there again, they didn't say a time. They said,
"We'll
be right
with you." I don't know what that means. And you can hear the doctor talking. There's the real. You hear them talking, and then
in the room over.
And then the room over, and then they're like, and then they go to their office to like sit down and make some notes. And it's like, see what happened here is you overscheduled yourself.
Yeah.
Which is. That's what, I say to Aaron all the time, like set reasonable goals.
Yeah.
Like it can be a very aggressive goal, but it's got to be reasonable. If it is unattainable, then you need to back off of that because when you tell people that you're going to do something.
Do you think it's conditioned in some way? So like I try to be like, time is like super valuable to me. I don't know why or where that came from. But I try to be like very respectful of people's time and expect it in return. And so when people aren't respectful of my time, it's like an immediate annoyance. I'm like, just like, why you asked me to be here at this time or, whatever it might be. And I'm wondering if like that's conditioned somehow. Like because I think we all know people who like, that's not their MO, and I'm not going to point fingers at anybody, but like I have a family member who, and she acknowledges it. She's like, yeah, I'm not going to be on time. Like,
I think it's conditioned
and it's okay. And like, that's just her. And so like, it's like, all right, well,
we're going to tell you an hour early because we want you to be there at a certain time for dinner.
Like we just expect you to be, you're going to be running late or something's going to have come up at the last minute or whatever it might be.
I have no problem with that, especially like, you said family, like, if we're having like a family dinner or something like that, if they're going to be late, like fine.
Yeah.
But we're not waiting for them. Like that's just something like my family. It's like, that's just not happening. Like if dinner's supposed to be at 6:00 and you're not there,
that's okay.
You get leftovers.
But we're starting without you.
Yeah. We're just not waiting for you. Because like I've been places where like we're waiting for somebody and then it like puts everybody else on that, scenario where you're just like, really? Like that's not how it's going to work.
No.
Yeah. I think it's partially conditioned and I think it's partially personality.
Yeah.
Aaron is super structured and very time oriented, just supposed to be where you're supposed to be at a certain time. My family is the complete opposite. I don't know. They could show up and not all of them. There's some of them there's a couple OCD ones that are as bad as anybody. And then there's variation, but on the whole, my family just shows up when there's no plan and it drives Aaron nuts. There's no plan, but it doesn't bother me because I grew up in it. But also because they never committed to a time. So like if they just said like, hey, what are you doing? We're going to the shore. When are you going to get there? We'll be down there this weekend. Like, okay. So
Might be
and
Sunday,
like, well,
might be
when are they
Friday.
going to be there?
Yeah,
I was
right.
like, I don't know. They're coming down this weekend. And she's like, well, you got to have a time. And I'm like, well, then I could get them to give me a time, but then it's going to be the wrong time. You know what I mean? Like, sure, they'll be there at 3:00. And then at 3, you'll be like, where are they? I don't know. I just made it up because, you know what I mean? In other words, and so that was something like we had to work through because it is like a thing, you know what I mean? Like you got to realize, and I think it's more important to know the people you're dealing with, right? Like in a Brian and I relationship, right? At work, Brian knows that I'm just going to come over and have a conversation when I want to have a conversation.
Sure.
And I know that Brian likes things scheduled. So I try to mitigate the difference by saying like, hey, Brian, do you have a few minutes to talk? And usually you say yes, even if you don't, you will make time, but it like gives a little bit of leeway, but you will say like, hey, can we talk in 10 minutes? Or, you know, I got something going on. Can we talk later? And I think the flip side, you've become more comfortable to just walk over and say, hey, Dan, can you talk? You know what I mean? Which is not your style. Like your style is we'll schedule it and I'm going to talk to you at 8:00.
I was just going to say that as you were saying that, I was like, yeah, but I don't do that to you. But I think I don't do it to you because of our relationship.
That's
like
like
what I expect.
It's
what I
like
expect.
learned,
Yeah. So,
where it's conditioned that you know we can operate that way. So you've actually become less structured with it with me, and I've become a little bit more structured with you. But it's because we know the other person how they want to act.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what's important. You know what I mean? Like I know if I tell Ford I'm going to be somewhere at a certain time, I need to be there at that time.
Right.
And ideally I should be there early because he doesn't want to worry like, is Dan is going to be late? You know, so like that will give me, you know, like my family would say agita is like an Italian word for heartburn.
Okay.
Like when I know I'm running late and I'm meeting Ford somewhere, I'm not happy about it.
Right.
Because I'm like, I know he's going to be 15 minutes early and he told me when to be there. So, and I could call him. So what I'll do is then I'll call him and I'll say, hey, something came up. I got hung up in this meeting. It's going to take me an extra 10 minutes. I'll be on time, but I'm cutting it close here so that he knows, because then at least he's not sitting there waiting because I know that bothers Ford. Not like bothers, upsets him, but it makes him uncomfortable. And the key to good interactions is being comfortable. You know, like when you feel uneasy, that's when it's not a good interaction.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually thinking I got 3 people on my text grouping in the last couple of weeks that I've had communication with, and they've all done let's get together sometime, right? And like I don't even know why they wasted time on those words. Like it's never going to happen. Because like they just, it's not that I don't want to, but I just know that like, you know, I have this one buddy, and literally like the best chance of getting him is calling him up and be like, I'll meet you in 10 minutes. Because that's the best chance of having something happen. But otherwise, until the next time you run into him somewhere, you're never going to see him. Like they're just running on that schedule. And you just have to, again, it's knowing, you know, back to the time and it's knowing the parameters, right? That's what we always talk about, knowing the parameters, knowing that person, you know, if that, you know, we'll go back to our buddy Heath. If you get to a new job, and the project manager from the owner, you look at his job trailer. Is his car parked straight?
I thought you were going to say, look at his shoes.
Yeah, well, it gets there.
That's early.
Yeah. Does he have the boot cleaner set up? Does he have everything lined up orderly? Like, you know that person is probably on time, wants to have meetings on time, wants to end them on time. You know, looking at the surrounding stuff helps you to understand what you're dealing with. And then once you know that, then you know what sandbox you're playing in. And I think that's the same with people outside our industry when they put these artificial timelines on themselves and then they don't perform and they're like, why does the client care? The client cares is because we live and die by dates and times.
Right.
That's how we get paid. That's how we don't get paid. That's how we have fights. Everything is based on a date and a time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, you know, we have to manage that because dates and times sometimes have to have change to them due to conditions, but we have to manage that every day. We're always managing time.
Yeah, for sure. That's probably a decent place to wrap it up. We got a little squirrely on that one, but I think we did end up at the place we started. Basically,
we're in a big circle. We ended back where we started, but that's about it.
Yeah. Honoring our not our vows.
Our commitment to time, Brian.
Commitments to time. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Honor your vows too. But
that's important.
That's also important. So, well,
that'll be a different podcast.
That's a different podcast for a different time. Thanks for joining us today, folks. We hope you got something from this, and we hope you come back for another episode.